FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
I think it's fair to say, I think that this probably would be a bipartisan conclusion, Democrats and Republicans alike. And by the way, there are, just so you know, so increase your comfort level, there are Republicans here in this audience. Over the past 6 days, I've spotted at least 7 Republicans across the campus, and there might be more, we don't know. But I think Republicans and Democrats can agree that you have one of the 3 or 4 most challenging jobs and most vital jobs in government. And I think it's fair to say as well that you have probably the most thankless job in the federal government, if for no other reason that you're there to make sure that things don't happen rather than happen. And to underscore the thanklessness of your job, I'm going to ask you a series of questions about immigration reform and Katrina and many other subjects. But let's start, if you don't mind, let's start with terrorism. The title of our discussion today is Are We Safe Yet? And let me open by asking you a fairly obvious question. It's been almost 7 years since 9/11. There hasn't been another attack in America since then. Not only that, we see that al-Qaeda's popularity is diminishing to the extent that it ever was overly popular in the Muslim world. We see that it's diminishing. We see that its sources of funding are being heavily monitored and watched. We see that its ability to stage terrorist attacks have been obviously diminished. The question is this because we're winning the war against al-Qaeda? Is it because we're lucky? Or is it because the threat has been over-exaggerated?
Well, I'd certainly say that the threat has not been over-exaggerated. Now, I can't speak for everybody who's characterized it, but I think the threat remains as serious as it was prior to 2001, although I think our ability to deal with the threat has increased. It's true we have not had a successful attack against the United States since September 11th, but it's certainly not been for lack of effort. If you pay attention to what's going on in London now, you'll see there's a trial that's finishing up involving a number of people who were charged with a plot to blow up airliners headed from the United Kingdom to North America, a plot which, had it been successful, would have rivaled 9/11, would have resulted in the deaths of hundreds, if not thousands of people, and probably would have seriously crippled international aviation. We've had the shoe bomber. We've had other cases that are pending that involve plots of various degree of sophistication and seriousness. And if you look at Europe, what you see in Madrid in 2004, in London 2005, in London 2007, in Germany 2007, is al-Qaeda as an international organization, but one which also has sympathizers that are homegrown in these various countries, and continued efforts to carry out terrorist attacks. So I think the threat is still there. Are we doing better in some respects? The answer to that is yes. There has been something of a reaction against the extreme violence of al-Qaeda, particularly as it relates to bombings that have killed Muslims, including Muslim school children, and that's caused a little bit of a backlash. And we have seen some Muslim thinkers now begin to speak out against al-Qaeda as a distortion of what Islam is about. I think in Iraq, frankly, we're in a much better position vis-a-vis al-Qaeda than we were 3 years ago, where you have Sunni tribal groups now fighting themselves against al-Qaeda. So those are positive developments. On the downside, if you've been reading the papers in the last week, al-Qaeda and its sympathizers among the militants in Pakistan, in the frontier areas of Pakistan, appear to be posing a greater threat to certainly a place like Peshawar than was the case a couple of years ago. So we have to watch to see whether they are experiencing a resurgence in the frontier areas of Pakistan. The bottom line is, I think it's a mixed picture. We've certainly done a better job of protecting ourselves, and that's, I think, one of the reasons we haven't had a successful attack. We've seen al-Qaida lose sympathy in certain quarters, but we've also seen that they're capable of regenerating.
Well, let me ask you this, because just yesterday, you're talking about Afghanistan and Pakistan and a resurgent Taliban. Admiral Mullen, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, just yesterday said, let me read you this. He was talking about the fact that he's running out of troops to fight a very complicated Taliban resurgence. He said, quote, "I don't have troops I can reach for, brigades I can reach to send into Afghanistan until I have a reduced requirement in Iraq." I mean, it's your job to protect America from terrorists who emanate traditionally from Afghanistan and Pakistan. He's saying there are not enough troops to fight those terrorists. I'm very curious to hear you out on whether the Iraq war is actually a drag on your efforts to protect America from those terrorists.
Well, I'd certainly say that, I think we've actually made a lot of progress in Iraq in the last couple of years. And I think that, I think about a year ago, bin Laden, in one of his public statements, said, Iraq is now the central front in the war against America. So from that standpoint, our seeing Iraq through to a successful conclusion, I think, is an important step in terms of making us safer. On the other hand, we do have a problem in Afghanistan. Although we do have NATO troops or European or international troops present, they're not there in the numbers that they need to be in order to support the effort that we are undertaking. And of course, Pakistan is a different issue, because there we don't have the ability to put troops on the ground. It's a sovereign country, and we can only operate essentially with the permission of Pakistan, which has not given us the ability to range widely in the frontier areas. So in Pakistan's case, we actually have to work with them and encourage them to take the necessary steps to strike back.
But address Admiral Mullen's statement directly. If you were asked for the advice, if the White House asked you on this question, would you say, yes, please take them out of Iraq and move them to Afghanistan before we have a situation that we had before 9/11?
I think what I would say is you have to judge whether it would be premature to take them out of Iraq in terms of now losing a lot of the ground that we've gained. Whatever your views were about whether the war should have been started or whether we've done everything we should have done at the very beginning, what is clear is the strategy now, to my mind, is working. And you certainly want to consolidate your gains and not run the risk that you're going to lose what you've gained in Iraq while you go off and fight in Afghanistan. What I would like to see is our allies put some more effort, both in terms of the number of troops they send to Afghanistan and also the degree to which they allow them to take on a really active combat role.